So this here has been a very lengthy process. Basically, the deck is trashed, it's covered in plaster, that's fine. You can wash plaster off. Trust me, I've tried. It does work. But this has basically been an extremely lengthy process of taking a bunch of scrap wood from our old kitchen project, which you may have noticed that a lot of my projects have been reliant on that scrap wood because there was so much of it. Cutting it up to form this so far, and then I need to add a little bit more to this. There needs to be a backing that will hide the wall the fireplace will actually sit in because it's just a plain, like, freestanding insert. Plastering these so that they look like marble. I'm thinking I want to do a kind of faux marble finish all over here. And then I'm not 100% sure about the sides, whether I make them look thicker or whether I leave them as is, because like I'm not really fussed with them not being thick, but it just depends on how it looks in the end. But that's where I'm at so far. I need to clean this deck up. So while I clean this deck up, I'm going to show you the whole process of how I built this fireplace so far.
I knew I wanted to try my hand at creating some Victorian style plasterwork on this fireplace, so I designed it with an arch opening in mind. This kind of plasterwork is something that I adore in old houses and I would love in my own home. I follow a lot of plastering companies online, weirdly enough, and I have learned from them that you can basically cut out the profile of the moulding that you want to create using wood, metal, or another material like plastic, and then you just scrape the plaster over your surface and slowly build it up. I used my recently fixed scroll saw rescued from a junkyard to cut out the profile, and I had traced this from a piece of wood moulding that I'd already had in my decorative wood pile. I have a lot of wood piles. A fun fact about this scroll saw is that it desperately wants to escape every time I turn it on. It's currently racing away from me and I don't know how to fix this. I then used a diamond grinder bit on my Dremel to refine this, and I sanded it down a bit and it was ready to go. I'm using plexiglass for my form because, to be honest, this is the blade that came with the scroll saw and I don't know if it's appropriate for cutting metal. I then mixed up a batch of plaster of Paris to begin with my scratch layer of plaster. So this layer would be made up of a fairly runny consistency, and I would gradually mix up thicker and thicker batches to ensure that I can build my layers up. With the plasterwork starting to take shape, I began attaching the base and sides.
And all of that brings us to today, where I am officially going to be sanding all of this plaster in my office because it needs more clutter and mess, clearly. But that's because it's pouring rain outside and I don't want to be out there. It's freezing and my hands have been turning blue every time I work outside lately. This project has taken me a while, and part of the reason for that is because I didn't really know where to go with the mantle from here. I mean, I know what I'm doing for the back, but when I say didn't know where to go with it, I mean I was a little bit unsure about what colors to do, what tiles to do. And I did spend multiple days browsing the internet, Pinterest, all sorts of sites looking for kind of some interior design inspo. I've got a pastel blue bedroom. I've spent the past 4 years attempting to paint a kind of chinoiserie style wallpaper, which I still have not finished. But a while ago, I put way too much grey into the room thinking, oh, that'll go with blue. And then I realized it just looks way too cold in there. So I didn't really want to put more blue and more just white. When you look online for inspiration, almost every fireplace, wood, which I love, or white. And we got white trim in that room and we're planning on keeping the trim white. But I was hoping that there would be something cool that I could maybe draw a little inspo from. And I did not find much, unfortunately. People really love white fireplaces.
So while I still have no idea if I'm going to paint this fireplace or just paint it white and be done with it, although I really would appreciate your help, I did find something interesting, which was a plaster technique called scagolia, which is a very, very interesting technique typically used in Venetian plasterwork to create kind of false marble effects, where you mix up lots of different pigments into plaster with animal glue, and you kind of create these amazing marbled effects. After finding out about this technique, I wanted to incorporate a version of scagolia into my fireplace build to experiment with the idea. Traditionally, scagolia would be made with pigments, plaster of Paris, and animal glue, but I just mixed up some tinted gesso with acrylic paint and plaster and applied it in layers with a paintbrush. To prep the plaster surface for this experiment, I sanded it back to even out any lumps and bumps in my original scrape. I used a plastic spray bottle filled with plain water and made sure to spritz the plaster with water before each brush application of the different layers. And yes, I am definitely experimenting with some wild colours here, but you won't see them in the end. Between each layer, I used a damp microfiber cloth and a light mist of water to burnish it. And I'm pressing firmly, but not hard, to make sure that I smooth the surface, but don't break anything off. Alrighty, so this is the final space that this fireplace will be inhabiting in the bedroom. The wall behind this will be properly painted and not in this state when it's finished. This little heater won't be there. And this is the heater insert where the cords will be hidden, and there will be a backing applied so that the fireplace is tiled at the back. There will also be a little bit extra around the edges, and all of that will be tiled. And hopefully skirting at some point. Over on this wall, you can see the colors that I'm trying to shift the hue of the bedroom to. I have been painting this for 4 years. Into this kind of peachy, cloudy, dark blue and light blue ombre. And you can see I've accidentally gone over some of my butterflies and I will need to fix those up. But given that there will be this peachy color added, I'm thinking that I'll be able to add a peachy color into that marbling over on the fireplace, that will kind of warm the room up as a whole. But let me know your thoughts about what you think I should do. This super pretty vase is where a lot of the inspiration is coming from at the moment, to add in creams and oranges to this room as the way to warm it up, because it was just way too cool in here. And then I realized that these birds look a little bit like lorikeets and rosellas. I thought that would be a good idea to add into my mural. So one, add a little bit of warmth and colour, and two, they're Australian native birds. So the plan is that above on this wall that I'm repainting now, there will be a couple of little birds just fluttering down there to a shorter tree over here.